What is going on, guys, and welcome to the Chasing Happiness podcast. Today I have Mr. Rowe, one of the more inspirational people in my life. How maybe you want to introduce yourself? How have you been?
I've been great. So my name is Dave Rowe. Met Nick in class a few years ago. I was teaching in Bessemer for the last 31 years, mostly science. And then I retired this spring to spend some more time with some family that needed some help and then do some daycare for our grandson. And then right now I just kind of substitute teach a couple times a week. Today was in Mercer, Wisconsin. That's why I've got this on, but Hurley, Wisconsin. I'd like to do it in Michigan too, but I just have to wait until April. It's just some rules with the retirement. So a
Huh.
longtime educator and just loved teaching.
What made you want to be a teacher? Did you always want to be a teacher when you were a kid, or?
That's an excellent question. The answer is no. I had to kind of figure that out along the way. I can see now that I was made to do this. This was what I was. I was a teacher, but it took a long time to figure that out. After high, I liked my favorite class in high school was anatomy and physiology, and I was really into athletics. So I was thinking maybe physical therapy or something like that. So
Yeah.
after high school, I started at UMD for a year and then transferred to the College of St. Scholastica for a physical therapy. And then you have to wait 3 years, go 3 years of college before you apply to get into the program. Well, when I applied, I want to say that there were 34 slots, and then there was two alternates. So it'd be 36. I was number 37. So I missed
Oh,
the cut by
wow.
one. Well, and then there's a lot of soul searching. What should I try again? Should I try for a different college? What is it that I'm wanting to do? Is it physical therapy or is it something else? And after a lot of soul searching, I really found out that it was teaching that I wanted to do. I wanted to be in a classroom with students. And I kind of really learned that when I taught a community ed class. It was called Northland Critters. So it was, I want to say, fifth graders, and I was teaching them about different animals and birds, and we had a great time. There were a couple of Native American boys in the class, and then once I found that out, we did some like picture writing and tried to incorporate some stories from their culture. And on the last day, the kids had a mug for me. It's one of my more prized possessions. In fact, I won't even use the mug for fear of
Oh.
breaking it. But it said David
Oh.
on it, and then on the bottom they had written NLC for Northland Critters. And then the mom of these two boys kept me. She said, they were embarrassed that they were Native American, and now they're proud of it. And that was that eureka moment. The light bulb went on. This is what I was supposed to do. This is what I was called to do. So anyhow, kind of a long story, but it took a while to figure it out. We don't always know what we want to do. You know what I mean? It's not always
Yeah.
easy to figure it out. And I guess along the way, if you don't know what you're supposed to do, it's okay.
Yeah. Even the
So
people that
anyhow,
I've talked to that know you. Oh, you can go.
no, go ahead.
Anything yeah. Uh, oh, okay, yeah. All the people that I know that know you, and even my stepmom, she had you when she was a kid. Everybody says you just
Yep.
radiate this good energy, and everybody always wants to be around you. And I think that's one of the things that made you
Oh,
such
that
a
was
great
very
teacher,
kind.
and you're everybody's favorite
Yeah,
teacher
I
all the
guess
time. It's just
I have heard that a few times, and thank you for saying it. But I love the energy of students. You don't know what's going to come through the door. You don't know their situation or their circumstances, the trauma maybe they have experienced, but there's just something about them. There's so much potential and so many good things. I guess I often see myself in students because you gotta figure it out, and it's not always immediately apparent what you're gonna do, and you know, like, you don't want to judge somebody because if you look back at your own life,
yeah.
we all make our mistakes as we're trying to figure our way through this world. And yeah, every one of us has things we'd like to do differently or maybe erase that moment in time. But yet at the same time, it kind of shapes who we are. We really learn a lot by going through the good days and the bad days. But no, I love the teaching and the students.
We do. Yeah. Is there, like, a big thing that you wish you would have known before you started teaching, or, like, a big struggle you hit after you started teaching?
Oh my gosh. Oh, I have my struggles on especially technology. When you got everything hooked up tonight and then you sent links, those are all things I couldn't do. We all have our strengths, and the sooner we learn that, the better. I'm good at certain things, and the teaching, I'm good at putting on a show in a way. I'm an actor. I have all of these stories in my
Right,
head, and they might seem like they're disconnected, but they're really not. There's a reason for all of them, and then students remember the
yeah,
stories. I wish I'd have known that I was a good storyteller early on, and it's nice, I guess, when I accepting the fact that there are things I'm not good at and asking for help. I wish I'd have known that earlier because when I started, I thought maybe I should know everything, and that was kind of a foolish notion because no, I'm never going to know it all. And then eventually in Bessemer, I think one of the best things I started doing was outdoor education. And at first,
yeah.
I was teaching leaf identification. It was minimal. And then I got some friends at the Forest Service, and I finally got the courage to ask, "Would you help me?" And then they said yes. In fact, I never got a no from the Forest Service. So I went from just a small amount of outdoor ed to very elaborate outdoor education that was award winning. And it all started when I got the confidence to ask for help. And then we kind of put things together. If it was just me doing something, well, yeah, we'd get something done. But when you bring others in and then you work together, you accomplish so much more. I wish I'd have known that earlier, like a lot
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah, that's definitely a good quality to have. I've
Yeah, don't be
when
afraid
I
to ask
in
for
being in
help.
your class, yeah, and everything, you say that you've traveled quite a decent amount. Is there, like, a favorite place that you've traveled or a favorite trip that you've
Oh, wow.
taken?
You know, I love to travel, and I'm glad you asked about that, Nick.
Yeah.
So, in the United States, my family, we do national parks and national monuments. I think we're at something like 67 parks and monuments. It's a lot. And when
Oh,
you see the
wow.
world, you see things differently. There are certain parks that you like better, but after you've seen some, there are some that you think, I think every person in this country before they die needs to go to it. So if I was to pick a couple, Glacier National Park is one of them. It's just so awe-inspiring. Of course, it's a long ways away. It's in western Montana, but that's one I would put at the top. And then Gettysburg is another one. The cost of war, I just think every American should go, especially every American president, before they send troops out. What is the cost of this? And I really enjoyed learning about that. I can see why people get into some of the traveling to different battlefields and then learning what happened there. As far as other trips,
That's
in 2013, I was selected as one of 15 teachers in the state, science teachers, to travel to Tanzania.
wow.
And that was life transforming, really. Um, we got to it was about a week long safari, photo safari in the Serengeti. We were on Lake Victoria, and then we taught in some orphanages and schools, and then we climbed and summited Mount Kilimanjaro. It was a wow. It was hard. It was really hard, to be honest with you, Nick. I'm kind of
I
a
bet.
a fit, sporty guy, and to be honest, I think it was the hardest thing I'd ever done. My wife and I trained for
Oh,
6
wow.
months so that I would be able to have the strength to try to do it, and it still kinda kicked my butt at times and pushed me to the limit, but when we were done, then we had to produce a video, really it was a film for a film festival. We went to Traverse City, Michigan at the State Theater, and you know how the lights are on, and then you got pictures of you and the lights? It was a pretty cool deal, and then people would just come off the street to see your movie. And then when it was done, they would ask you questions. But the big idea of mine was, what is your mountain? We're all going to face mountains in our life. The mountain I climbed was a real one. It was Kilimanjaro. But we're all going to face other obstacles in our life too, and we've got to figure out how to get over them. In the end, I dedicated my movie to my parents, my mom, who had overcome breast cancer, my dad, who was dealing with Parkinson's for 11 years before he passed away. But we all have these mountains, and sometimes
Wow.
it's challenges at home, or challenges with a family situation, or with friends at school, or maybe it's a new school and you don't feel like you fit in, and it's a mountain, it's a challenge. And I really learned a lot on that trip about myself, about what I could accomplish, and I love showing my movie.
So you started teaching and you said you really loved it. What made you want to keep doing it for 30 some years? Did you just keep having
You
that
know,
passion or did it ever fade at all?
that's a good question. When you're young, and I guess I'm gonna call myself stupid, you think, "Okay, well, I wanna be done and retired as soon as possible because I wanna have fun."
Right.
And in Michigan, you can kinda do that, or you used to be able to. You would have to teach 30 years to get your retirement, but you could buy 5 years of your retirement. So, really, you only had to do 25. So, when I was young, oh, I bought my 5 years, and I thought, "Okay, I'll retire when I can." But then you start having fun, and you kind of identify with your job. It's who I am. My friends are the people I work with, but it's the students, they become precious. Anyhow, you get close to that 25 years, it's like, "There's no way I'm gonna go. Not a chance." Then you get to the 30 years and you think, "I wanna keep going." And then you do more. Now, eventually, we did retire, and a lot of it was family dynamics. We had older parents that needed some help. We needed to help get them to doctor appointments and things like that. We had a grandchild, and if we could do the daycare, they didn't have to go to a daycare center. We didn't want them when they're so young, especially with all this COVID stuff. We wanted to do the daycare.
Yeah.
So, we're trying to pick
Right.
the best of 2 worlds. So we did retire, but I'm still teaching, a couple days a week subbing, and it's not the same as my own classroom, to be honest. I love the classroom. And then Mrs. Rowe, she is doing online tutoring, so she's got 4 students that she does online, and then 1 comes to the house. So we're still dabbling in education, and to be honest, I don't ever want it to stop. It keeps my mind alert,
Yeah.
and with kids, you never know what's coming through the door. It's always interesting. There's always a story, there's a backstory, something going on, and I absolutely love it. It's still fun.
Is there a time in between even your childhood and now where you've had that big failure that you didn't think you could come back from?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Yes. You know, we all pretty much have those moments and you think, "Oh my gosh, what am I doing? Where am I going? Which way am I going?" You know, the big one was when I spent 3 years in college to apply for a program and then failed. They didn't take me. And then I talked to the head of the program, and I finally it took me days, like 3 days to get the courage to do it. And then I thought, "Well, why didn't you take me?" His words were, "Well, we all liked you. We liked," and I thought it was odd, but he said, "We liked the people you hung out with." But he said, "The problem is you got a B minus in statistics." He was never very good at math. And he said, "Other people had higher grades." He says, "We liked you." He says, "If you want to go across the country, there's another school that'll take you, but you're not gonna get in." I said, "Well, how about next year? If I miss that by that much, I'll get in next year for sure." He said, "No, next year's going to be harder." It was just difficult. Other failures, you know, I don't know, my brain was programmed. I've always had struggles with math. I can do it, but I'm not very good at it. And to try to be funny, but tell the truth, I had a wide variety of different letter grades in math. Um, it wasn't usually A's and B's, but I had all kinds of other things that would show up every once in a while, and it's like, "Oh my gosh." I really did try hard, Nick. I really did, and I would study, and I'd try to
I
break it
bet.
down, and it didn't always click with me. I just wasn't programmed, and that was hard because my dad who did construction, and he was good at this math. My older brother's an engineer. He did math. My younger brother programs pacemakers and does cardiac rehab. He's really good at math. And then there was me. And I wasn't very good at math. My mom wasn't either. And to accept that, to be honest, it took me years to get just accept that this is the way I was. And
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It wasn't easy because I wanted it to be easy
I
and I
bet.
wanted to be like everybody else in the family, and I wasn't. But that was okay. So that was a big
Yeah,
challenge.
I bet it was.
It
Well, you
was.
obviously found your niche and where you thrive.
Yes, I
Is
did, and
there
I consider
oh,
myself
s
blessed to have done that. Again, it took a while to get there, to figure it out, but, I don't think I changed much along the way either because this journey I learned a lot on the journey to getting there. I learned about myself, and I learned what is it that I really like. I like working with students, I like working with the outdoors, the natural environment. It made sense to me, but it wasn't always apparent.
so are you from Michigan then, or are you
No, I
from
grew
somewhere
up in
else,
Duluth,
or
Minnesota. Yeah, I grew up in Duluth and then did my undergraduate work in Duluth, 1 year at UMD, 4 years at the College of Saint Scholastic. After you change your major, you're stuck for 5 years. And then
yeah,
there was a job posting at Saint Scholastica for both math and for science. And well, my fiance, of course, Mrs. Rowe, was like, "Hey, there's a job for both of us, maybe." And she said, "Bessemer, where in the world is that?" And I said, "Remember when we went skiing at Big Powderhorn Mountain?" I said, "That was in Bessemer." She said, "Oh, yeah." So we applied, and it was an odd interview. We were interviewed at the same time. We'd been finalists for other jobs, but they never interviewed us together, not even on the same day. But literally, they would ask me
huh,
one question, perhaps about discipline, and then they would ask I guess she was my fiance at the time, about curriculum, and then they'd ask me about, it was like they didn't even ask us the same questions. And after 10 minutes, they said, "I can't think of anything else to ask you." Well, our other interviews were intense, and they'd last like an hour. So then we tried to sell ourselves for the next 10 or 15 minutes, and then we waited and waited and waited and heard nothing. And then eventually they offered Mrs. Rowe a job, but they didn't offer me one yet. I had to wait another week or so.
huh.
So she got offered the job on a Monday. We got married on Saturday. And then about a week after that, then they offered me the job.
Oh, wow.
A lot of stress.
How did you and how did you and Mrs. Rowe meet? Uh,
That's
have
an
you guys
excellent
known each
question.
other
We met
bef
in high we met in high school. We had, I think, 2 classes together, anatomy and physiology. I did say that was my favorite class, remember? Maybe it was because I met my future wife, and then we had chemistry together. We didn't sit by each other, but, we started dating actually our senior year, about halfway through on
Oh,
something like
wow.
January 21st, 1986, and yes, I do remember the date. So we met in
Wow.
high school.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
we
It's
kind of
just
went to
and
different
it's lasted
colleges,
this
but
long.
yeah, that would be
That's real
36 years ago, almost
that's
37 years.
yeah, that's amazing. Do you have,
It is,
like oh,
usually when you
you can
start
keep
dating
going.
that early, things like that often don't work, but in this case, it did. She's a patient woman, so
Is there, like, a certain story that sticks out that maybe you'd wanna tell or,
oh my
eh,
gosh, usually
from
these
any
stories end in
category?
embarrassing, which is just fine. A story about the 2 of us or how we met or something?
Any category. Sure, it's whatever.
Okay. Well, I
This
can
is your
embarrass
interview.
myself a little bit. Our first date actually wasn't a date with each other. It was I think we were sophomores. I was dating somebody had for a little while, and she was dating somebody that she had for a few months. And we used to go to UMD Bulldog hockey games, but of course, we were dating somebody else. Anyhow, after
Right.
that didn't work out, which is usually the case, the 2 people that we'd been dating said, "Those 2 belong to each other, belong with each other." So anyhow, it's been a fun ride. It has been. We've got the 3 kids, and one of them's a teacher. Um, yeah, I guess the key is you're not always going to agree about everything, but humor is really important. And at the end of the day, you just kind of gotta forgive and let certain things go because you're gonna screw up. I mean, you're just gonna screw up in any
Right.
relationship. And sometimes you just have to say, I'm sorry. And you just have to do that. But yeah, humor is important. Giving each other and finding don't leave your other friends out of the picture. Find things that you like and support your spouse or your partner in those things. So I do a lot of fishing. My wife doesn't go with me on all of these fishing trips. Some of it she has no interest in at all, and that would be fine. But then there are things that she does with some of her friends. I'm not too interested in doing it, but it's fine to give her space and let her do those things.
Yeah. That's it's crazy how you guys met so young and made it this long, and it's
It
awesome.
is crazy.
I haven't heard of anybody.
It doesn't
It's like
often
one
work
of those
out
things that's
that
just
way.
meant to be.
Yeah, it really was.
No.
I'm a religious person, and sometimes, yeah, it's like there was a plan, and I didn't always know what the plan was. I could keep telling you that, but it came together, and man, it worked out great. So I am very fortunate, very blessed that things have worked out, and I just can't believe it. 37 years when you're young, your whole life is a small time. And then as you get older and you get a different perspective, it's like, oh my gosh, I can remember when we hit the point where half of my life I've been dating you or married to you. And then now it's way more than that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
very
you came
lucky,
out
very
you moved
blessed.
out to Bet you moved so you moved out to Bessemer because of the job?
Yes.
Oh, you live in Ironwood.
Yeah, we both got
Yeah.
hired.
That's
It was at a time where teaching jobs were actually quite hard to come by. And for us to get 2 jobs in the
yeah.
same district, it was just like, wow. So we literally got married on July 13th, and we moved to Bessemer by of course, we had our honeymoon after that, and we were living in Bessemer, I think, out by Powderhorn in a chalet on Creekside Trail by August 2nd. So, I mean, it was just a few weeks later. And then I was
Oh,
helping to
wow.
coach football with Pat Gallina. Wow, it was a privilege, but there was a learning curve. I played football 1 year. I was terrible. I had no moves. I was just awful. And I didn't know much about football. And here I'm working with one of these football coaching legends. It's like, oh my gosh. But he was good. He was a patient man. And he just told me, this is what you need to do. He explained what I was supposed to do. Just very kind and supporting. So we coached a lot in those first few years. Mrs. Rowe with another great one of those coaching legends, John Pierpont with volleyball. We learned a lot from a lot of people, and then you get better. We did the track, and then when we started having kids, we stepped back from the coaching. We wanted to raise our kids when they were small, and then once they got a little bit older, then we got back into coaching the athletics, coaching the academic teams like Quiz Bowl and Science Olympiad and things like that. So our situations changed, but again, it worked out, and we were able to pull off what we wanted to do, raise the kids and have enough time to do that, so we were home to do it. So we just kind of cut back to teaching for maybe 6, 7 years.
Yeah. I that's crazy. You're an inspiration to so many, and it's just crazy how you enjoy it so much and you bring joy to so many people. And it evens out, and it's
Yeah,
crazy. I've never seen
yeah, it's kind of a symbiotic relationship in a way. I would like to think that I'm able to help students, but I am also benefiting and learning from them. It's no exaggeration to say that I love my students. I mean, and don't take that in some weird way, but you genuinely care for them. I mean, you really do. And then, at the end of the day, um, every single night, and I try to continue to do that. I'll say a little prayer for my students. Watch out for them. Be with them. Sometimes you know about a situation, and yeah, you care that much about them, and it's not some casual thing that you really genuinely care for the students and want the best for them. And I know sometimes it's not always easy.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Yeah, my cousin, she graduated in 2019. She was to
Okay.
always talked about it. I was still in middle school. Yeah, middle school at the time. I
Okay.
wasn't even near going to bed. And every day when she would come home, even if she was having a bad day, she would always talk about how when she would get into your class and Mrs. Rowe's class, that it would make her day a little bit better.
That was sweet of
She
you to
really
say.
loved you guys.
Well, please express that it went both ways. We thought the world of her too. When we
Yeah,
had that COVID shutdown, that was devastating. It was devastating for the teachers and the students alike. In that
it
spring,
was
oh my gosh, it was just rough. And then we go to the fall, and then we'd be
it was
shut down for a few weeks, and then we come back, and then we'd be shut down. It was, you really had to try to analyze how to, what became more important wasn't so much the learning anymore. It was the support that you knew you weren't alone, even though you were alone at home. You weren't alone, that somebody cared about you far away. So we try to do these goofy
right.
things. I had one of those little birds, kind of gets in the water and then comes back up. And then I'd put these other goofy things and messages and try to get students to laugh. Um, it was fun to see their pets, but it was just so hard for so many people to be so isolated at home. I hope that never ever happens again. It was devastating for many people.
It was good. I remember in that first lockdown when, like, it just shut down out of nowhere. I was sick for the week before that, which I now look back on and realize it was probably COVID. I just got
It
better, and
probably
then the
was.
next day and then the day I was supposed to go back, it just shut down. Everything shut down. And then they kept saying that you should have all this stuff, and I was kept saying that I wasn't at school, that that the teachers were handing out packets, all of this, and, like,
Oh
I have
no.
no idea what's going on. And then when Google Classroom first started, nobody knew how to do anything on it. Everybody was lost. Nothing was getting done. It was really hectic.
Oh, it was. And the teachers didn't know how to use the Google Classroom very good either. When it shut down, it was so weird.
Yeah,
We had a quiz bowl tournament that day that we found out. It was a Thursday. And they said, well, we're going to be in school tomorrow and we're going to close down because this COVID's coming around. But we'll be back, 2 weeks, 3 weeks tops. We're going to be back and it's going to be all over. We had no
yeah.
idea. We were so clueless. I mean,
It
yeah,
was
3 weeks is going to be over. That is just not what happened. Now we're, approaching the 3 year point and it's just changed our lives. It's a pain
yeah.
in the butt.
I kept remembering people were every time somebody was sick, people would be like, "Oh, you have COVID," that kind of thing. Everybody was joking about it, and then it became real in less than like a week. It went from a
It did.
joke that was going on the other side of the world to just something that was shutting everything down.
Yes. The whole
It was
world came to a
insane.
stop. Then you start freaking out about the food in the house or like it was the toilet paper. Oh my gosh, you couldn't even get a roll of toilet
Oh
paper
yeah,
at
that was
Walmart.
terrible.
Oh, it was just,
That was
and then the
insane.
weird things. One week there'd be no cat food. You couldn't get a can of cat food, or and then
Yeah.
another time it would be something else. There'd no like Campbell's soup. You couldn't get a can of soup. Oh my gosh, no. Shelves were bare and empty. It was just crazy.
It I don't know exactly, like, why everybody did it. Really think it's because they didn't it was, like, lack of education in that specific area, like, they didn't know what was going on. Nobody knew what was going on. So I'm really, like, kind of pushing it toward the fact that nobody knew what was going on, that they just did whatever they could get to try to some people it's like some people almost thought the world was completely ending.
Oh,
And
they
they were
did.
making almost bunkering down. Yeah.
Oh, clearly they were doing that. And then there was this um, kind of a group mentality. If you see everybody else doing it and panicking, then you start to panic too. If you'd see somebody
Yeah.
loading their entire cart with paper towels or something, oh my gosh, maybe I need paper towels too. And then you'd grab them even though you didn't need them. It was just nuts, but scary times and so difficult for students, and then you're trying to learn things, and wow, it was hard. It was so stressful.
And then I remember end of 2020, beginning of 2021, it's got a tiny bit better and then it got way worse again. And 2021 started out good and then it just got way worse. Like we lost Kobe and all of these things happened. And we kept thinking that we were going up and everything was getting better. And then it came crashing down again. And the entire world just freaked out again.
It did. It
It
seemed like
was
we'd get
really
these
bad.
waves, and then it would get worse, and then we'd panic. And you're right, in a national scene and an international scene, a lot of bad stuff happened. I mean, stressful things, people that maybe we looked up to ended up dying in ways that, oh my gosh. And then every night it seemed like they have, well,
Right.
this movie star, that actor, this sports figure died of COVID this week. And it was such a downer and so depressing. And, even in this last year, everything with Ukraine and those poor people there, oh, it's been rough. It really has been rough. It's hard to stay
Yeah.
focused on the positive when there's a lot of negative going
When
on
this,
around you.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just hard.
We've got some good things out of quarantine, people being able to focus on a certain craft and finding themselves, but it's it still weighs down a lot that what happened, but a lot of people were able to use that time to find themselves, and that find some positivity out of that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I've lived here since 91. And during that shutdown, you were still allowed to do things outside. So I
Yeah.
went on, and I hike a lot, but I was able to find waterfalls. And it took a while to get to them, but things that were difficult to find that I'd never seen. And to be honest with you, if we hadn't shut down, maybe I never would have gotten to them because they were typically
Yeah.
difficult uh, things to find that required you to hike long distances. So yeah, I got to spend time with the boys and our daughter and Mrs. Rowe and go places that and maybe do things I wouldn't have done. So yeah, I agree that there are some positives to it.
Yeah, a lot of people are able to spend time with their family that they normally wouldn't have been able to spend time with, and I think that's definitely a plus. And
I agree. I totally agree.
I still, I, s- I still don't think we're completely out of it, but definitely think it's gotten significantly better.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I think it's more of a nuisance right now because we're still going to get it every once in a
Yeah,
while, but usually most of us have had some shots and have some immunity because we've had it before. I would be one of them. It seems like everybody pretty
yeah,
much has had it at least once. And then with the shots, we get it and then we're sick and then we kind of stay home for a week and then we go back. So it thankfully is it's a nuisance now, but it's not nearly as bad as it
yeah,
used to be.
yeah. I was always confused because now that I look back, I realize that sickness that I had when I first started was probably COVID. But
It probably
I was
was.
always
It was
confused
here, but
because
we didn't know it.
the yeah, throughout the last 2 years, everybody that I've known has gotten it at least once. A lot of people was bad, a lot of people wouldn't, but I never got sick throughout the entire time. I was never sick, and it was crazy. I remember I remember having to quarantine a couple times from school because people that I knew
Oh,
had it, and it was nuts.
it is. And you probably didn't get it because you had some immunity because you were one of the first people that got it. And that's why you were sick that week.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it's nuts, but
yeah,
we didn't
it
know it
was
was here,
weird.
we just knew nothing about it.
Yeah, I think that's why it got so bad so fast because nobody knew anything.
No, and we
If
were
we weren't
terrified of
prepared
it.
for it.
Oh my gosh, no, not at
Yeah,
all, not at all.
yeah. I definitely think we could have handled it better, but I don't think that it would have went any other way in a
I agree
sense.
with you, totally
Like,
agree.
I I feel like either way with the internet and everything, it would have gotten to that point, but I don't think it could have gotten as bad.
No, I'm with you on that one. Yeah, there
Yeah,
was yeah, we could have
yeah,
handled it better, but there was no avoiding this collision that was coming.
yeah, definitely. And that's just in like the US. I've seen they're still wearing masks outside in parts of Europe, and it's
Yeah,
they're still
other
wearing
parts of the
masks
world are
everywhere,
much
and
worse.
yeah, we
Yeah,
got.
I can
I
handle the
like to
mask,
think
but
that we have it. Yeah,
I think so.
you can keep going.
Yeah, and that even the wearing the mask, I know we needed to do that for a while, but I hated not seeing my students' faces because you get those
Yeah, I thought.
expressions. You kind of get it. Hey, you okay? And when you're wearing the mask, you don't always get that. You know what I mean? So no, I'm glad that if they want to wear them, no, that's fine. But most don't. But man, I just didn't care for that because you didn't. It was harder to know how somebody's day was going, and sometimes you can just tell immediately. Hey, you okay? Let's go talk. So yeah, I didn't care for the mask
Yeah,
thing.
I definitely forgot what a lot of people looked like throughout that year where we were wearing them constantly. It was weird
Oh
when
my
we came
gosh.
back and nobody was wearing them, and it was, like, weird
Well, I know.
seeing everybody, like, you didn't remember what they looked like.
Well, and some of them too, you'd be maybe at the grocery store or something, and you've got their hoodie on, you got this, and then you got this. All you see is their eyes, and
Yeah,
is that you, Nick?
yeah,
Oh my
it
gosh.
was
Yeah,
really weird.
it was just surreal, like, I don't know, like Twilight Zone or something.
Yeah. Oh, well, at least we don't have to wear the mask anymore, and, at least, there's
Oh,
not
thank
as
goodness.
many cases. That's definitely a plus, and
Right, no, I
with
am
the
very thankful
vaccines
for
now,
that, let me tell you.
I don't think it's good. I think if something like this were to happen again, we would approach it at a much better pace.
I think so, I agree, we'd be at a better place.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it was crazy. Well, I'm thinking gonna have to start weaning out. Um, it's
Okay.
been really good. I this is a very
It
successful
has been.
episode. I really liked it. Um, all right, I'll
Well, I
see you guys.
appreciate you.
Thank you for listening.
Sounds good. Thank you, Nick. It's been a lot of fun. I appreciate you reaching out to me and inviting me to be part of this podcast.
Of course, I think everybody's gonna love hearing from you. Everybody loves you. You're the best. Thank you for
Well,
coming on.
thank you. I was
It's been
always
great.
surrounded by great students, so thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, see you watching, listening, and subscribing anywhere and everywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple Music, and obviously YouTube. So make sure to like, subscribe, and come back for the next one. I really hope you guys enjoyed it, and see you guys next time.